So there are two types of trading that you can look at, two generic styles. And you tend to find that the most profitable one isn't the one that you may think. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. So yeah, what I'm talking about here is in general. So the thing that you often see, I say to people, if there's a system that's being advertised that you want me to have a look at, please send it over, because I can tell you whether that system works or doesn't work, and so on and so forth. And typically what you get delivered to you are high probability systems. So what they're doing is they're basically taking a position in the market that has a high chance of success, and therefore you will go on long winning runs. And therefore Mr. System Seller can say basically, oh, you know what, we were just unlucky then that we had that loss after 30 or 40 or whatever. And but of course the issue that you will have is that over the long term it will not be profitable. So you can pursue a system for a long period of time. It will have lots of winning and losing runs, but eventually over time you realize that it doesn't make money. So high probability systems, or high probability trading, is where you're basically taking a position or a situation in the market that is quite likely to lead to a profit. But we're only talking about the profit for that particular process at that particular moment in time. So, you know, you do something and it ends up in a profit. You do something and you go on long winning runs. And then every now and again you get a big loss that will counteract that. Now, a lot of system sellers will give you a high probability system. And then when that system fails, they will ask you to chase that loss. Or they will go into a loss recovery process. They never use the word chase the loss. They just say loss recovery. And as a consequence, you can see that that doesn't repair a fundamentally flawed system in the first place. But also, it's very easy to find processes that create high probability trades. So, for example, if I lay at one particular price before the start of a horse race, and I wait for that to be offset and get matched, then that will occur with quite an amazing amount of frequency, and I could probably do it more than once. Now, if I wanted to ensure that that trade almost certainly completes and creates a profitable trade, then if it doesn't get matched before the off, then I can just take it in running. I can turn it into a keep bet and let it go in running. And what will happen there is that that bet will be filled the majority of times. Why? Because only one horse can win the race, and even the favourite or the winning horse within the race will probably drift at some point during the race. So that's a classic high probability trade. It will work a huge amount of the time. In fact, if you refine your entry on that, you will get it right 99.9% of the time, and it will look very impressive. And you can display lovely P&Ls with win after win after win after win after win after win after win. Now, the problem you have is that system will not make money. Unless if you refine it in some spectacular way. Because when you get the loss, you lose 100% of your capital. So okay, you win 99% of the time, or 99.9% of the time, but when it goes wrong, boom, you lose all of the capital on that particular trade. And from a trading perspective, that's a disaster. Trading is all about having some profit over here, having some loss over here, and just making slightly more than you lose. And that's an interaction between your profit, your loss, and the strike rate that you have within the market. So yeah, you could get that to win a significant number of times, but when the loss comes, then it will be catastrophic. And that is incidentally the same for systems that recover losses. You can get high win rates, but when it goes wrong, it will go disastrously wrong, and you'll lose a lot of money. So on the flip side of the coin, you have systems, processes, trading strategies that don't pay off very often. And what actually tends to happen is you go on very, very long losing runs, and then you get an occasional win. And then you go on long losing running, and then an occasional win. But over the very, very long term, what you learn is that those systems can be profitable, because while the losing run is going on, it doesn't look great. And the big win, it's the opposite of what we've just discussed. Basically, you get big wins coming through the market every now and again. And over the very long term, they all average out, and they overcome any of the small losses that you had in the run-up to that particular big win. And in fact, chance events, or events that don't seem that certain occur with much more frequency than you would ever possibly imagine. I'll probably do a video on it at some point, because when I discovered this, it suddenly made enormous sense to me. And that was that when you're backing something at very, very short odds, or deploying a high probability strategy, it seems to lose more frequently than you expect. So when I first saw this many years ago, I thought, well, why not just flip it on its head and then just go for systems with very, very large payoffs that you don't expect to win very often, and maybe they will come in more frequently than you expect. And that's exactly what happened. So, but you also learn something deeper within the market when you pursue these two different strategies, and that is that everybody goes for the low-hanging fruit. Everybody wants a strategy where they're going to get instant reward. It's just human nature to try and get that level of gratification. So if you adopt a strategy or a process that gives you a frequent reward, that feels good. You know, you feel like you're heading in the right direction. And every now and again you get an unlucky, in inverted commas, situation that develops into a loss that wipes out a lot of those profits. So as a consequence, when you're pursuing a strategy like that, you can dismiss the losses because they're infrequent, just to bad luck, or if this wouldn't happen, if that wouldn't happen, if that didn't go ahead, if I wouldn't have done that. Well, the fact is it happened. So whatever the reason for that occurring, it happened, and that's what killed your strategy. The strategy was flawed. So you tend to find that people go for the low-hanging fruit. So as a consequence, positions that involve low-hanging fruit tend to not mature to a profit longer term, or they're less optimal than strategies that go counter-trend, counterintuitive to what you would think. So if you pick a strategy with a potential payoff at very, very large odds that is going to occur infrequently, then you tend to find that they seem to occur slightly more frequently than you'd expect. But also, people don't pursue them. You know, how soul-destroying is it to place a bet and have a loss, win, because the win feels fluky. Now, there's a strategy I pursue during the National Hunt season that deploys and exploits this characteristic, simply because of the uncertainty of racehorses over the jumps and the fact that anything can happen, and especially because they're over longer distances as well. So the strategy itself doesn't look impressive. You can post very, very long losing runs, but when you get the winner that comes in, then that dwarfs a huge swathe of them. And, you know, I can see that this makes sense over the long term. But when you present a strategy to somebody like this, there's very few people that could stomach it, because you have to lose a lot of money before you get your first win. And then you go on another long losing run, and you may actually go for a fair period of time, and then boom, 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 boom. There's several of them coming in all at once. So if you're looking from a broad market perspective, what I suggest you do is you pursue strategies that are counterintuitive or don't feel comfortable. Because if you pursue one that has a high probability of occurring, you tend to find that there are a lot of people there because they're using that strategy for a number of reasons. Could be legitimate or not so legitimate. But the high probability strategies rather, are the ones that people tend to cluster around, simply because of the gratification that it gives to keep winning money. And then people slip into this mode of chasing a loss when that position goes wrong, because of course there's no way it could come in 3 times in a row, is there? However, most of the value is created at the other end of the market. If you look for strategies that have a payoff infrequently, and where you have to have a certain amount of tolerance to losses, then you tend to find people don't pursue them, and that is in fact where a lot of the value is. So yeah, if you're creating a strategy, have a think about that, and start thinking about areas where the payoff is infrequent but large, but where you're going to have to bear a loss for a fair period of time. You have high probability strategies that tend to have a slightly worse payoff in the long term, even though they perform well in the short term. And you have high profitability strategies that tend to have infrequent payoffs, but tend to occur with infrequent regularity, and therefore people don't pursue it, and you tend to find more value in those things. But that's the key difference between high profitability and high probability strategies.